Hi, this is Karma with the California Writers Club. We're live, and we are going to be talking about small presses today when we have Jennifer Joseph here from Manic D Press. And in addition to that, later on we're going to have a virtual workshop with Terry Tierney. Terry, do you want to tell us about your workshop?
Yeah, the workshop is going to be called Journalology, and it's about how to submit to literary journals.
So there you have it. So first we're going to be talking about small press editors, their policies, how to get published, particularly with Manic D. And we might be having some other editors chime in later. Our hope was that everyone would stay home today and check in on the live stream. So I'll be checking in with you guys, and hopefully you will check in with us. Christina Deptula is going to be leading the questions for Jennifer, and I'm going to go ahead and move the camera a little bit to them. So, you can say hi.
Okay. Hello. Hi, Daniel.
So are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, great.
It may take a couple minutes for us to get started because, technology.
I'll go ahead and do my hello welcome. All right, so
Have a seat over there.
you're going to have to see when I'm done with it. Give me a second.
Hey.
So, hi everybody. Can you see me? I can't see you at all. I posted a minute ago and I don't think it worked, but this is the weirdest meeting ever. One wants to continue with one's ruts, and our meetings here are a wonderful rut. We always know what's going to happen and flow in and out. So we're holding on to the barest thread of that today by me being here at the front of the room with our poster up. We don't have any books out because they're a vector, and Karma's been spritzing down everything behind us, so we're all being safe. And we actually have got two of our panelists here live, and Christina is here live. And we are trying to get our third panelist looped in virtually through Facebook Messenger. So that'll be interesting and weird. We did that at AWP and it worked. So as for what's coming up with the club, there we go. I can't really tell you. It's challenging enough to run the club, with everything up and working. But we have a lot of technology available to us, our Facebook group and our Google group. And I was glad that we did that big lecture in January that gave everybody an overview of all the things that we have working for us. So moving forward through the next couple months, we're just going to have to play it by ear and just keep doing our motto and sailing on. There's a lot more to what's happening than we anticipated, and for me, it's very much just having the time to go through all the information that's coming at us furiously. I mean, there's already enough information out there, but right now we're all trying to process our actions and our awareness, and make our plans and stock our toilet paper, and so forth. But you're also getting all these messages, and a lot of it, everybody's sharing everything right now. It's just a huge time of communication. And a couple of the things I've seen a lot is how prolific Shakespeare was during, the plague. And so maybe we can all hunker down and get a lot of writing done. That's a positive look at it. And this morning there was something about the Decameron, which is, a great book, and a story about people who left Florence during the plague and got a house and told each other stories. So I think we're all going to feel like stories are going to be important. And the other thing that we're all going to have to work on taking care of is all the sectors of our society and our culture that are that we're already, challenged to begin with, and trying to keep hope alive, keep love alive, and keep our art alive. And so I find it's very perfect that we're talking to small presses right now, because I don't want to jump in and start anything, but I think small presses is just both a small part and a big part, and actually a very stable part of the publishing industry that has gotten us through a lot of times. But we will talk about all that later. So I see that we have at least 3 of you here online. This is kind of cool. With Facebook Live, we can see who's commenting. So please leave a comment if you're watching this. If you're coming in and have not seen any of it yet, it will all be recorded for afterwards, and we can keep the comments and the discussions going on Facebook afterwards. So I will probably pop in with some notes as I'm watching this, and for the rest of the day after the panel, we'll take a little break, and then we're going to do it again with Terry's presentation. So just to show you who's in the room here, we've got our 2 panelists. You guys can wave, Jennifer and Daniel. And out there in the room, we've got Karma and Christina and Terry. And we're all keeping our physical distance from each other. We don't like to call it social distancing, right? Because we want to be socially close but physically distant. So Karma's been running around spritzing everything. So we're all safe here. We're all not going to catch anything. And we're really glad you guys stayed home. All right, so Christine, are you ready to get together?
I am definitely very ready, and
Okay.
I'm glad to make opening remarks and welcome everyone here. We're still trying to add J.K. Fowler, and he's been missing.
Okay, so we'll trade places. You can come up here and take the moderator's place.
Okay, sure.
And then you're going to be going here, so hopefully J.K. is going to be on that screen in a minute. And you can actually turn this to whoever the speaker is. All right,
Okay, sure.
All right, well, come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christina Deptula, Speaker Chair with the California Writers Club, and also a literary publicist through Authors Large and Small. And as everyone else has said, writing can still go on even in a time of plague. You think about Shakespeare and King Lear. And also in areas of Italy right now that have been quarantined, people are leaning across their balconies and singing opera songs. So there's a lot that people can do to keep things going. And even if you have a book that has come out, certainly you can write during these times. It's a great chance to catch up on writing and also on reading. I would definitely recommend that you go and order books online or from nearby independent bookstores. Keep those bookstores going during this time. And also that you go out and recommend books to people online. I have something going where you can say your favorite book, and I will recommend a book to you based on that. So there are a lot of creative ways that you can promote books, you can share books, and you can definitely keep on buying and reading books and keep up with your writing at home. So just because people are doing physical distancing doesn't mean you have to distance yourself from books. So writing and creativity will help us to get through this time. And I am very honored and very privileged to be moderating this panel with representatives from the Bay Area small presses. And small presses are a very valuable and important part of the literary ecosystem, as I'm sure that all of you know. And so I'm going to spotlight and turn the mic over to some very amazing people very soon, so that we can learn more in detail all about who they are and why this works. So, and to my left is Jennifer from Manic D Press, and they are a wonderful Bay Area institution. They show up at a lot of literary events. She's going to tell you more about this later. They are very important in the literary ecosystem. And so I'm turning the computer over so you can see Jennifer of Manic D Press. She will wave. And then farther to my right is Daniel Zarazua. And so he is from Pochino Press, which is right close to us in Oakland. They publish books, especially by people of color and emerging artists. So just very glad that both of those presses exist in the community. And J.K. Fowler of Pneumatic Press should be joining us very soon. We're working with the technology. Really hoping to be able to get that on board very soon, as we'd love to have him join. Okay, he says he's here virtually. So is the computer screen up where he's able?
No, not yet. We're working on it. We'll get him there in a few minutes.
J.K. Fowler says he's here virtually.
Well, he's watching it right now.
Sorry, bit of a delay.
Okay, so yeah, he is watching, and so if worse comes to worse, he can write and I can read things that he's saying.
Okay.
just carry on and I'll get him in here, his face. But he is on the live chat, so he can respond on the live chat. So that's
Okay, yes. So we're working with J.K. Fowler to be able to bring him online and to have his face online very soon. He's on the live chat, but yeah, we're still working on the face, but that should happen soon.
Just turn your camera on, Star.
So
You should be able to video in. Give it a shot.
going to invite people to be able to introduce themselves on the panel. If we could do a short introduction and then get to providing specific information to people very soon, that would be wonderful. So closest on my right is Jennifer from Manic D. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and your press within 2 or 3 sentences, that would be fantastic.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Joseph. Manic D started in 1984 when I was 23 years old. Publishing poetry, expanded to fiction, nonfiction, children's books, travel books, art books, photo books, all kinds of stuff. Manic D publishes about 4 to 6 titles a year, has international distribution, has had books translated into 13 languages, I think, at this point. Yeah, still hanging in there and going strong. Very happy to be here today. This is a groundbreaking way of doing things and happy to be carrying on regardless.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you very much to Jennifer Joseph of Manic D. And so now I'm going to turn the microphone over to Daniel Zarazu of Pacino Press for another brief introduction.
Everyone, so yes, Pacino Press, there's 3 founders, so it's myself, it's my wife, and it's my sister, so very family-oriented. So we started in 2013, and we are Oakland based, but we do a lot of work with creative folks in Ethiopia, Taiwan, and a few other spots that we have connections to. But yeah, Oakland and the broader Bay Area is definitely our base. It just partly came out of we just love to read and be creative. We knew all these creative people, and so we just said, let's start doing this. And so we've done poetry, we do art books, nonfiction, fiction. I mean, just kind of a variety of things. And I would say what our focus is definitely not underrepresented voices, but particularly looking at different intersections. So culturally, looking at intersections. So for example, I've done some work around Black and Latino communities in Taiwan, looking at creative intersections. And so pairing up watercolor portraits with poetry and things of that nature.
Mm.
And the other part I would say is we all work with young people, and so a lot of our work is to kind of help generate more interest in literature and reading from that community, that population. I would say, just the young people around, to get them to say, hey, that looks interesting, and I want to read it. So.
Okay, great, wonderful. And so a friend of mine who's also in the Writers Club, Aquila Lewis Ross, was published through Pacino Press. Her book Stop Hurting and Dance. So very happy to see that.
Hi, Aquila. Just saying hi because we're live.
Okay, hi Aquila. So I definitely endorse Pacino Press and then Manic D as well. I'm sure that I know Manic D authors. So let's see, is J.K. Fowler available for...
Almost. We're getting close.
Okay, so J.K. Fowler will be introducing himself very soon in Nomadic Press, which is also a wonderful Bay Area organization. And so while I'm here, I'm going to move on and ask the very first question, which is, how would you say that it's different to work with a small press versus a large press? So asking Jennifer at my right, and then Daniel at my far right after.
With large presses, you often have to have an agent, which is its own tricky thing to procure, especially if you write literary fiction, poetry, or non-traditional work. When you work with a very large press, your agent will act almost like the way editors used to act. They might read your book and make suggestions and send it back and forth 3 times before they'll even present it to a publisher. And in that amount of time, things might move quickly. And what was hot 6 months ago, publishers might no longer be interested in certain types of memoir or certain types of whatever genre. When you do get your work accepted, Large publishers are highly compartmentalized, so you'll be working with your editor at the publisher, but there's also the marketing department, the design department. With small presses, I'm pretty much the only one who works at Manic D. So I do the editing, a lot of the design work, a lot of the promotion. So I work very, very closely with the authors that I work with, and so it's a very, very personal experience. It's a collaboration. So if a project succeeds, it's not, oh, my publisher didn't do enough for me. It's a question of everybody working together in a collaborative way to move the project forward.
Okay, great, wonderful. So posing the same question to Daniel, who's farther on my right.
I pretty much have the second. Although that's a lot of the same things I was going to say. It's like this is the personal piece of it, because we worked with a variety of writers and artists, ranging from first time. I mean, like we collaborate a lot with high schools, but also people who they have a number of publications out and work with larger companies. And sometimes we'll ask them like, why are you interested in us? And there's a lot of very personal conversations that we have, and it's that relational piece. I think like the collaborative piece is that there's a lot of discussion about what is the artwork going to look like, the quality of the paper, literally to that degree. How can we make this work? And so I would say though the two big pieces: the relational piece and then the collaborative piece.
Hey, look who's here.
Okay, great, wonderful. Some of my very best friends, along with you all, are small press publishers, so I can definitely agree with all of that, speaking from experience. And so happy to announce that J.K. Fowler of Pneumatic Press has now joined us virtually. So I'm inviting him to briefly introduce himself and his press, and then to speak to the question of the difference between working with a small press versus a large press.
It's so bad. Oh wait, someone needs to turn off a mic or something.
Let me do that.
So, happy to announce that J.K. Fowler.
Okay, this is weird. It is meta.
So meta. I'm like seeing myself within myself. How's everyone doing? So in the Meta Press, we are located in Oakland. I started in
You can't hear him anyway.
2011.
I'm gonna move him closer.
No, this is the mic.
Oh, okay, the mic.
You want to move the mic.
No, it stays fine.
Okay, now you've turned your sound off. We can't hear you.
It's better now, actually.
It's better with you. Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So I started the Meta Press in Brooklyn in 2011, and we moved out to Fruitvale in Oakland in about 2013. So we're coming out, around 9 years of doing what we do. We really focus on building platforms for folks, whether that's on the page or at events, and building community through those. And so we look to build community amongst the writers that we publish, but also, anyone that's a writer, both here in the Bay and beyond. But also working with small presses, other small organizations, nonprofits, businesses, to really help kind of build that web so that we can all benefit off of, building something together. I think the difference between local and large, or small and large, I guess you would have to define what a small publisher is. Some small publishers have a budget of, $4 million, and that to me is not small. So maybe Nomadic is a micro publisher. But I think that for us, at least, it really does come down to the relationships. I do sit on the board of North Atlantic Books, and that they have a budget of about $7 million and consider themselves to be a small publisher. But they work through Penguin Random House, and so dealing with someone like Penguin Random House in New York it's a completely different beast. And they have strong relationships, but they're just different. They're really run through with kind of a capitalist mentality, and I think on a local level we can really work in a way that feels good in our bodies. So I'll stop there.
Okay, that's great. That's wonderful. And then from you, I'm hearing that as a small press, you work through organizations in the local community to be able to form community partnerships above and beyond your press putting the book out, which I think is fantastic. And I'm sure that the other panelists to my right and a lot of other small presses do that as well. And so I have another question and anybody can also ask questions virtually, and then we can answer those too. And I have another moderator question, which is, why should authors consider publishing through a small press as opposed to self-publishing? And the corollary to that is, how much work are you going to be doing for your own book in terms of publicity and marketing and everything else through a small press? How can you be helpful? How much work should you prepare to do, and what should you expect the publisher to do? And why would you consider a small press as opposed to self-publishing? So I'm going to turn to Jennifer on my near right.
Okay. Is the microphone? We're moving the microphone. Are we good with the mic?
I will move.
Okay.
I'll move the mic.
All right. We're good. Okay. What was the question again?
Okay, the question is, why should you choose to work with a small press as opposed to self-publishing? And then how much work should you expect to do going in? Is the small press going to do, say, PR for you? Or should you plan to do it yourself or work with an independent publicist? Basically, what should you expect from a small press versus self-publishing?
Right. When you self-publish, you're taking all the risk, especially financially. You're the one who has to come up with everything, the money, and it's a lot of work. Some Manic Deep projects were originally self-published, and the writers and authors immediately realized that they hated being publishers, and I was like, I could have told you that, it stinks. But I think basically it's a collaborative process. If you work with somebody who's been doing small publishing for a while or independent publishing for a while, they really understand the ins and outs of creating a readership, building community, book design, cover design. They, absolutely have the connections that they built up over years. And with promotion, they have connections where they know, okay, you published a poetry book. I have contacts at this magazine, that magazine, this blog, that blog. So they will send out copies to get attention by using the connections they've built up. Additionally, they will, it's a collaboration, so they'll bring ideas to your work. Manic D just signed a project that I'm not announcing yet, but it's really exciting and super fun. And the author had X number of ideas about it, and I'm adding to those, building on those ideas, and really, it's just, I'm having more fun than a barrel of monkeys with it. So I think that in terms of authors participating, finding a readership, which is what we call marketing in Manic D land. You wrote a book, publishers invested into a book, but the circle isn't closed until that book is in somebody's hands. Even if they're hating it, you're allowed to hate stuff we publish for sure. But the idea is that you want to close the circle. You want to have a complete formation between the creation and the actual reading of the work. And we considered a partnership. So Manic D doesn't have a huge amount of money, and right now all kinds of events have gotten canceled. This author we published, Kimi Sukioka, in Oakland. She's in Alameda, and she had a whole bunch of readings just canceled. I think 5 events, but online, what we're doing right now, it's groundbreaking. It's so creative. Thank you so much I keep saying thank you, but I'm so excited to be here because I think this is what we're doing. We're making it happen within the parameters of what we can do. And I love the fact that JK, hi JK, is coming in from, remote. It is meta, and it's awesome. It is so fucking cool. Pardon my French. I shouldn't, curse, but I'm just thrilled that that the creativity goes beyond the writing, goes beyond the creating of books, that the idea of creating community is moving forward in ways that we could have never envisioned 2 weeks ago. So, yeah.
Let's pause before Daniel answers because thank you, Hector. We have. You want the coffee?
Okay, great. We're going to take a few minute break, but that was a wonderful answer from Jennifer. So, yes, great. A small press is a partnership, so please consider that. They help you a lot with what you'll need for your book. So, coffee break for speakers. Thank you. And one other thing is that small presses will edit your book. And writers, everybody, myself included, totally pointing at myself, you need way more editing than you think you do. And a lot of places, vanity presses included, will not edit your work. They will not catch anything. So if you are self-publishing, please, whatever you think you're going to spend on marketing, go out and spend that on editing and make your book as clean as you possibly can. And then I would consider working with a small press. So just copy, developmental, anything and everything, please have your book edited several times. You're not going to catch everything yourself, even if you taught English. So that's something important, and that's something that a small press should be able to help you with. So then turn the mic over to Daniel to talk about, once again, the question was, why should you work with a small press as opposed to simply self-publishing? And what can you expect to do while you're working with the small press, and then to have done for you by the press. So turning to Daniel Zarazua-Ficino to answer that.
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is that it's nice being the second person to go, because a lot of things I want to say have gotten said, probably more eloquently than I would have said them. So I just want to, so with that sort of thing, it kind of keeps validating, like, this is why we do the work. Like, when I hear, like, speak with other publishers, like, how much we end up having in common, like why we do the work, what are the challenges, what are the upsides of it. So I just want to say, just kind of throw that out there. But yeah, definitely helping with the risk, like sharing the risk, the financial piece. Cause I've had a lot of conversations with friends, and there's like, why should I work with you guys? And I work with you all. And so I say, well, there's a cost. Then we start breaking down numbers, and they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So there's that piece. But the community, I always want to go back to the community piece, that kind of formalizing certain relationships. Like, even though for friends, that's very different from us having like a business partnership in terms of, and I don't mean just from like a financial standpoint, but just that we have a formal agreement then kind of ups the ante more than me just purchasing your book. Another thing I would add is, or one thing I really like was that the creativity beyond the writing, or the artistic piece. And so just to give two examples, actually, I'll give two examples. So our first book was by an author, but we were able to partner up with artists. And so we had like the visual piece. And then if anyone's familiar with James Gales, this is our most recent book. Mm-hmm. And he's a watercolorist. And this is why I kept referencing that. So he has, for example, here's one of his portraits. That one's particularly Grace Jones. So he does prints, he does art shows, he does all those sorts of things, and we'll partner with him and support those shows. But we also did, this is the second collection we did with him, and then we found writers to interpret his art. So that was a way of helping James kind of get his work out there, but also help with the literary community, to have some writers just either show him appreciation or kind of give them a muse to work with, or that sort of thing. And so that was something we've been able to put together, and then just with the local, I think a few other people that have been mentioned before, like, we've done shows at barbershops, we've done readings at clothing stores, just different ideas that maybe people hadn't thought of, or the folks who've worked with throwing ideas out to us, and then we kind of just collaborate. And we've done things like a lowrider shows and all kinds of different. We just try to get creative, like who's this book going to reach, or how do we get that book to that particular audience? And so the barbershop series has been great, actually. That's been a really fun one. So.
Okay, that's wonderful. It's creativity, and that's an example of why it can be good to work with a local small press, because as Daniel and Jennifer have all said, there are local places, within Oakland, within the East Bay, that they know of where they're hosting events. And so there are plenty of wonderful small presses all around the country. But if you can find a local press who represents or publishes the kind of book that you're writing, that is an advantage to working with one. And so I'm turning the microphone over to JK now to talk about why you would work with a small press as opposed to self-publishing, and what they will do versus what you will do.
So I'll echo what Jen and Daniel said. Also wanted to give a shout out to Daniel. I really love some of the work Pacino Press is doing, the Barbershop series, but also Daniel's an amazing photographer. And I think that even though that's kind of like a separate medium, it feeds into the aesthetic and approach that Pacino takes. So just a shout out on that. I think it depends what you want from a book. I don't mean to be a broken record, but for us, it's relationships, and the book is not necessarily the goal. The books are wonderful, and we love to hold them, and we love to throw release parties and all that. But the process is really where it's at for us, and beyond the book, holding that relationship beyond the book, having our writers come back in to help us sell at festivals or attend AWP or, host writing get-togethers for other nomadic writers. In that sense, it's there's kind of a familial, found family kind of feel to it that I think is really important. So if that's something that appeals to you, for our press, that's kind of the feel. So I think self-publishing is wonderful. I think if you want to get work out quickly, it's a great way of doing that. I would just say that, quickly does not always mean better. And I think that moving slowly and intentionally can have really great payoffs, especially around relationship building, but, also the work itself can benefit a lot from time. Some people might disagree with me on this, but I don't think there's much that's urgent, that urgently needs to get out. I guess unless you're writing nonfiction books on a particular topic in the news or something, but I feel like a lot of what we publish have very long timelines, and they pick up on patterns that have been around since time immemorial. So I think taking the time to build those relationships is really important.
Yes, that's great. I would totally and completely second that and agree with that. And so quick question for Daniel, which barbershop, if anybody wants to go?
We work with Charles Blades and Jack London Square. And speaking, I think, of the creative process, actually the way we originally connected was Charles Blades, who's one of the owners of the shop, those jazz events, and that's how we met, and then we just hit it off, and then he became our barber. And this was years and years ago. I think something that, alluding something, referencing something that J.K. said, was just how it's a long-term process. The books, we love books for literature. I mean, we're at a small bookstore yesterday, and I spent tons of money. I was just love to read, but it's really about how the books help create community and document certain things. And so with Charles, we've known each other for years, several years, and just this idea has been percolating for a long time. And then finally, he's like, I want to do it, and then we set a date, and we made it happen. And another thing I would add is that one of the reasons I'm really appreciative of this process, one, that we've done it, but also these are two of my favorite presses just as a reader. So multiple books. And our last event we did with Charles Blades, there was a number of nomadic press folks there as well. So we're very supportive of one another. So prior to yesterday, the last book I bought was a couple nomadic press books. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, great, wonderful. And
Raise your hand if you have a nomadic press collection.
I'm pretty sure that I do. I encourage anyone and everyone out there to buy books from Nomadic, Manic D, and Pacino Press, as well as Barrett Kohler, as we were going to have a Barrett Kohler panelist here. And so, yeah, wonderful small presses, please support them, especially when fewer people are going into bookstores. Try to order those online, or if you have a bookstore near you and you can walk in and there are not too many people, please go in and buy books, especially from small bookstores and small presses, and keep the community going. And James Gales is great, by the way. I publish an independent magazine called Synchronized Chaos, and we have published his artwork before. So he's fantastic. And so that leads to the next question, which is, why as readers should we consider buying books from small presses? So turn the Microphone over to Jennifer Joseph.
Well, let's see. Here's a Manic D book that came out a while ago. It's called Painting Their Portraits in Winter. The author is Miriam Gerba. Miriam Gerba was recently in the news because she was hired to write a review of a book called American Dirt, and she didn't like it at all and went on Twitter, and the whole thing blew up. And she's first generation Mexican American, and her books are about her experience. And she took umbrage at the fact that Random House had paid a six-figure sum, I think it was Random House, to a white writer to write about an experience that she didn't have. And that there were so many interesting discussions around that, that Miriam Gerba, a Manic D author, we did her first and second works of fiction, brought up. And so, you know, it's interesting with J.K. and Daniel talking about that it's about creating community. But I just have to say, for me, it's about the books. It's about the work. Manic D's always been about the work and investing in the ideas in the work. Manic D, since Manic D started 36 years ago, has been about moving the culture forward. Really. You know, through the multiple books we published by Justin Chin. We've done a lot of LGBTQI. The ideas in the books that are presented in the highest form of literature can move society forward. So yes, Manic D is about creating community locally, but at the end of the day, the intention is to move society forward, to take ideas that have been traditionally marginalized by society, and by disseminating the ideas in a way that is accessible and artfully presented, we can move the culture forward. We can create a more just society by putting these ideas in a nice package that are not threatening to people. But read the books. That's the thing. You know, I think that the beauty of the books is, yes, you can have wonderful connections with the local community, but by sending the books out into the universe, I have no idea who's reading Manic D books. We work with distributors. I can see where the books are being shipped. I know that the books have been translated into Russian and Japanese and Polish and Hebrew and wherever, but I don't know who the end user are. And that's why you have to have great faith in the process. And a Manic D author who we originally published in 1994, we did 3 books for originally. Jeffrey McDaniel just had a poem in the New Yorker last week. And if you're a poet, having a poem in the New Yorker is like top of the pops. That's pretty much as good as it gets. But I recognized his work a long time ago and had great faith in that he would go forth and do great things. And I'm so happy for him, you know, that he has achieved the success. And his books, Manic D books, 25 years later are still in print. And that's also circling back to being published by a small press rather than a large press. Large presses take books out of print very quickly. If you've ever been in Barnes & Noble, there's a whole table, or even an independent bookstore, of remainders, things marked down to $2.98, $3.98. So your book will be in print for X number of months, years if you're lucky, but then it'll be out of print. And that's because of the IRS tax laws of publishers being taxed for remaining inventory as if those books are going to sell. So at the end of the year, publishers will pulp books, just recycle them, or try and remainder them. That's what the technical thing is, because otherwise they're taxed as if they're going to sell them at full price. So that's a little secret, dirty little secret of publishing that not a lot of writers understand. Nowadays, with the print on demand, short print run, the digital printing, it's less of a problem. So you can just print as books are needed. I'm sorry, I got so far away from what the original question was, but I just, whatever. Sorry.
So now I am turning the question to Daniel of why readers should consider buying small press books and where you can find small press books.
Okay, so double whammy. So the first thing, my first way to respond is we got to do our part as small presses, making things that people should buy or want to buy. The quality needs to be there. So I think that's one of our things. Like, okay, is trying to step back, objectively looking, is something that I would purchase. So just being very mindful of that. From a local standpoint, the money does stay here in terms of like we're very deliberate about who we work with, who we partner up with, like the venues that we rent, the caterers that we use. Like so much of that money gets directly reinvested back here. I think to the point of this global outreach. I think one thing we had to look at some of where our limitations were, because we do have said books in some other areas of the world and some other folks that we work with. So part of it for us, for the community piece, is kind of how can we promote like this is a book and there's kind of a ecosystem around it. And so that's where I appreciate JK's little shout out with the photography. But that's a very deliberate thing. Like here, this is what's happening. Like here's the kind of the vibe of what's happening in the barbershop. We had like a live jazz band last time that they performed in between the writers, some video, and I think part of it because a lot of people I know a lot of people who purchase our books aren't, but they wouldn't necessarily consider themselves readers per se. Like they're more into not to say the experience, but they're like, what is this topic? I'm really curious about the Mission District. And so when they start seeing some of the pictures, and they're like, oh, there's a book that kind of helps maybe document what I just saw, or kind of captures some of that energy. And so there's a very deliberate effort there. Of course, we want the people who purchase books on a regular basis to buy our stuff. But I know but for us, there's very much a deliberate effort to reach out to folks who might not ordinarily pick up a book. And that's where I think the community pieces come in for us, where there's some of that deliberate that, hey, this is this whole place, this is something you can take, this is a tangible documentation of this, and then support these writers and creatives. And plus, there's stories in here that I feel like we're all putting out that just they're not getting enough of a platform elsewhere. And so by supporting the presses, we can keep doing this. So we do a lot of our work. We have like 3 authors in the Mission. And it's they're native, they're multi-generational, natives of the Mission. And so they're telling these perspectives that just maybe somebody else in value or whatever else. And so the more people invest in us, the more we can put back into those works. And the writers we work with, they're very present in the community. Like they'll come for me being a high school teacher, they'll come into the high school and work with the young people. And that's, I think, spread the word to different areas.
Okay, great, wonderful. So again, building those connections and building sustainable community over time in the local area, which is fantastic. So all sorts of small presses do that within their communities, and I think that's great. And so I would encourage all of you to go into Google Small Presses Bay Area and look up, these presses, Nomadic, Miracola, Manatee, and Pacino, and also other presses in the Bay Area or, wherever you live, and to look through their online catalogs and to consider buying books from small presses. And so last but not least, I'm going to turn that same question to JK of Nomadic. And what is the role of small presses in the literary ecosystem? Why should readers buy small press books, and where can they find them?
So, where can they find them? So, in our case, I think all 3 of our cases, you can find our books on our websites. That's generally a great sale for us. And our distributor, Small Press Distribution, is a great resource. You can go to their website, you can view hundreds of different small presses from around the country. Books through Small Press Distribution, so I'd welcome you to do that as well. In our case, and to echo something Daniel said, the money that you spend on an automatic press book goes directly back into the community. So in our case, we work with local printers based in Oakland. It's 2 people, Badar and Fatima. They print the books from start to finish. The paper is from Kelly's Paper. It's a local place as well. The books are housed in our distributor in Berkeley, sold through our website in Oakland, and our office in Oakland. And if folks come to our events, you'll often see a table of our books there as well. In-person sales are always the best for us. That's where we make our best margins. And also, if you see our authors out and about, there's a good chance that they have copies of their own books with them. And that's something that we offer our authors, because our authors do tend to be very active in the community at a number of events. We offer our books to them at 40% off. They can sell at the retail, and then they keep the difference. So we do pay our authors on a royalty structure, and as you all know probably, that doesn't mean a lot of money. But offering the books at 40% off to the authors and then having them be mini distributors, if you will, and making a profit in doing so is a nice way of putting money back into their pockets. What was the question? The importance of buying local?
Yes, the importance of buying local, and also where to find small presses in your area, where to find their books. Like, can you ask at a bookstore?
I think the importance of buying local is see not only with books but everything else. When we think of Amazon and the impacts a horrible company like Amazon has, not only on publishers but everything else in our society, including their contracts with ICE and everything like that. I think local viable alternatives are really important. I know that an alternative to Amazon popped up called, I think, bookshop.org. I posted in the group, but bookshop.org. It's an experiment to bolster sales for local bookstores, and it's framed as an alternative to Amazon. So I think the more that we can start to build structures like that too, the more that we can move away from behemoths like Amazon that do a lot of harm to our society.
Oh, okay, that is great, to second that. And letting you know that a lot of local independent bookstores do sell small press books around here. Go in and ask for them, ask about local authors, ask about books from local publishers. So online is a great place to look, and also at your local independent bookstore. So I'm actually from Hayward, so I recommend that you check out Books on B Street. Ask Renee, our local proprietor, to be able to order books for you for small presses. Look around in the area. And I'm giving a shout out to Bradford Productions, my friend Letitia Bradford, who's a member. So they're all different kinds of places you can find books. So I recommend those. And so I have, let's see, another question, which is, and this is only a small part of the panel discussion, so don't worry. But if you are an author with a manuscript, how can you be a desirable author from the point of view of a small press?
The best way to be published by a small press is to read their books. Don't blindly send out a submission without being familiar with what the company publishes. I always pay extra attention when somebody in their cover letter follows the author guidelines, which are on our website, has read our books and can talk about them. Hey, I read this book, this is what I like about it, this is what works for me, and this is why I'm submitting. you know, authors' themes don't have to be the same as what we're publishing. I'm always looking for original material, but the writing has to be consistent with the type of writing that we publish. So I think that if you publish if you write language poetry, experimental poetry, Manic D is not the right place to send your work to. If you write experimental fiction that doesn't have a strong narrative with good characters and a narrative arc, maybe Manic D is not the place to send your work to. Be familiar before you blindly send manuscripts out. Pay attention to what the writer's guidelines are, the time that they would like to read submissions, what format they want the submissions in. Be respectful. Like I said before, I'm the only one who works at Manic D, so I just don't have a lot of time. Manic D publishes 4 to 6 books a year. We get 4 to 6 manuscripts every day. Wow. And it's a lot. So send in your strongest work. Let's see, I think that's about it. Just be really familiar with who you're sending stuff to, because you don't want to waste the publisher's time and you don't want to waste your own time.
Okay, that's good. So good answer. I'm turning the microphone now over to Daniel.
Okay, so, 2 things I'd add. So being familiar with what we've published before doesn't mean that you have to follow necessarily that format, but it kind of thematically you kind of can tell what we're about. And so we've had things from just totally unrelated. It's kind of someone just blindly shooting stuff out, and like this doesn't. I don't know. It's kind of, I don't say like kind of waste of time, but you could clearly like they had no idea what we do, and so it's just kind of. I don't know. I think do a little research, do your homework, and not just what we publish, but kind of what's our overall energy. Like the community piece is something that we've actually talked a lot about as a press and some of our other writers. That one, because we do so many things in the community, for different reasons. Probably not just who we are. I think probably like just what we have capacity for in terms of where we put our energy. And so if that doesn't really fit you for different reasons, then it probably won't work out. That doesn't mean we don't like your writing, but it's just like with so much of it, that's what we do. Like we're doing community events and, obviously trying to get everyone paid to the best we can, but there is this community element. And so it's the collaborative piece. I think sometimes we've had people approach us, and sometimes friends, they're like, I just want to write. They want us to do everything else. It's like we don't have, I don't know where that works anyways, but we didn't have the infrastructure for that. So we can't put together tours for you. You can't just sit at your house waiting for us to send you checks. And, there's a few people, they're like, well, I was like, this, we remain friends, or we're just like, this is what it is. And the authors where we've had the most success with in terms of numbers, it's the ones out there putting in the work. So they're, their books are taught at universities and things of that nature, because they're out there talking to the professors, they come interact with the classes, and of course people spread the word, like I really like this person. And that's the second, another piece I'd say with the collaborative piece is that, are you just a decent person that people want to work with you? Like, I can enjoy your work and maybe not like you as a person, for sure. There's probably plenty of authors like that I love their work and maybe I don't need to know them as much. But for our size, it's helpful to people just like you. That'll get you so far. And then, some of our top writers that they've secured a lot more. I'll be honest, they've secured more sales than we have, because they're just out there and they're selling their books without pushing their books. If that makes sense. They always have it available, and then there's that piece, and then something that's helpful, and this is something I think going back to the relational piece, and people don't necessarily have to have this, but it's helpful. Like, what are people's goals? I think that's the key thing, and I can't imagine anybody does this to get rich. But sometimes I think people have a very skewed view of what it means to be a writer. And we openly have these conversations, the relational piece again, where some of the authors and artists who've approached us, we have these honest conversations like, here's a contract, let's talk about it. This is what even some of the language of the industry might be. And they're just like, just some kind of, I would say, outlandish requests from us. We're like, that's not how it works. And then and so it's like, what is your goal? And some people come like, I just want my goal is to get into this community's get it to this certain community in East Oakland, for example. It's like, hey, that's a very different angle that we have to play, and that's what we love. That's where most of our work happens. So I think in terms of having your goals beyond just like I want everybody to read it, and then working with us to help develop those goals, I think that's what it is. So again, the flexibility is a big piece of it, the collaborative piece. Yeah, then we can just keep managing those expectations just to maintain our personal and professional relationship.
Oh, okay, that is great. So as somebody who has as a publicist, worked with many small presses and the authors they publish, I would definitely second and third all of that. And yeah, my advice would be please edit, double check, double, triple, copy and developmental edit your manuscript, get it as ready as possible by multiple other pairs of professional eyes before getting it to the publisher. Don't skimp on that. And also let them know connections, publicity ideas, specific people you know, you may be setting up your own tour, your own bookstore appearances, your own online appearances, and going and getting your own, reaching out to people on Facebook, Twitter, social media yourself, and getting reviews and endorsements yourself. So it helps if you are not afraid to do a lot of your own PR or to hire someone. And if you come to the small press with ideas and connections that you have, and you are able to fill in and do a bunch of the work, whatever they don't do. So I will now pass that question on to J.K. Fowler. So how can we be desirable authors from a small press perspective?
Yeah, so I think really appreciated a lot of what Daniel just said, particularly around the relational. And to echo both, I think it is really important to know who you're sending your work to. We shifted our language. We have an open reading period every year from January 1st to February 28th. This year, February 29th, because of leap year. And we shifted the language of our submissions, and it wasn't arbitrary. We changed it to invitations. And the idea there is that you as a writer are inviting us to read the work, potentially build a relationship. And as invitations go, you can accept or decline an invitation. So for those that may not seem like a good fit, we decline the invitation, but leave the door open for future potential relationship to happen. So I think in that shift is, for us at least, a really important shift around moving away from a transactional relationship, which I think is really prevalent in the quote-unquote industry. Sort of the quid pro quo of, I'll give you my work and you give me, what are you going to give me, kind of vibe, to something that we're more interested in, which is how are we going to be in relation with one another. And I think being a decent person, to echo what Daniel said, is really important. For us at least, when we're looking at manuscripts, we're looking at do we want to be in a relationship with this person for a long time? We have not discontinued any of our books, so we're holding those very first relationships that we started. So that's something that's present for us when we look at new manuscripts. Are these folks that we want to be in a relationship with? Looking at taking a holistic approach to publishing. Taking into account who this person is, what work are they doing in the community, how do they interact with the audience? We do a lot of events, and so we aren't really paying attention to how writers are responding to their audience. If their audience doesn't respond to their work, is it the audience's fault for just not getting it? Or does the writer take that opportunity to reflect and see how they might tweak their language to better connect with other human beings? So I think depending on your frame, a transactional framework is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. but Nomadic Press wouldn't be the place to seek that out. There's many, many, many places that can offer that, and I would ask that folks just be clear on why they want to be published, and then out of that framework, seek out the publishers that best fit their work. Did I answer your question? Do I have?
Yes, that does. I would say that that is a good answer to the question. So I believe we're at the point now where we can, let's see, clap or elbow bump and thank all of our panelists and turn this over to audience questions. So double elbow bump to everybody. I just came back from AWP and we did this for sanitary reasons instead of instead of high fives. Or instead of handshakes. So thank you to all of the panelists, to JK, Jennifer, and Daniel, and thank you very much to Karma and Kristen Cavan. And so if people have questions they would like to ask, please feel welcome to ask those questions over our messaging. And I can pass them to the panelists.
I have a question.
So yes, Kristen?
Hi everybody, thanks for being here. I've learned a lot. That shows me. So, hey, pipe down out there. So my question is, well, first of all, one thing that I've realized hearing you talk that you haven't mentioned, like in total, but I really want our artists, our writers to notice is how you guys create communities in your own presses. And I know that Nomadic does a monthly reading, and Manic Depress, you've been doing readings forever and appear at Litquake, and Puccino, you also have gatherings of your authors where you actually get them out locally to read each other, to get to know each other. So it would seem to me that another benefit of being part of a small press is to enjoy the community of authors. My question is, this is meta. I'm watching myself. My question is, so what about small presses that aren't in Oakland? Maybe we have a book that doesn't fit in with the local presses or has been rejected by all the local presses. What is it like, if we were to work with a small press that's not a local press? And how do you work with authors who are not local to Oakland?
Okay, so who would like to answer Kristen's question?
I can answer that.
Okay, so Jennifer will take that.
Let's see, in the 90s, Manic D had a lot of local authors, and as the economic situation in San Francisco has changed, Manic D is based in San Francisco. Over the years, a lot of our authors have moved away, and it's interesting, and we started getting manuscripts from all over the world, and so a lot of our authors are not local. So what's interesting is, like Daniel said, you don't want to work with people who are crazy people if you can help it, even though quite a few Manic D authors kind of fall under that heading. I think the thing is that having a phone conversation after email exchanges, if you're a publisher, the way a publisher would think is like, oh my goodness, this great project showed up. And then you engage in emails back and forth to assess out what the person's goals are, which Daniel mentioned is really important, that everybody's on the same page about what the end game of what they want to do and where they are at in their lives. How much time do they have to dedicate to this? Is this sort of some kind of thing they completed a long time ago, they just want to let it go and move on to the next project? Writers can be squirrely. Sorry, writers. But it's true. And so you don't want to be engaged with an author, a potential author, who's like, well, I did this, it's done, I'm already writing my next book, and, you should publish it and get it out into the world, and, I'm not involved anymore. So I think that you want to long distance connect with people. In the project that we recently took on, and we had some email exchanges about goals, kind of getting to know you. Have you done any other projects? Where are you at in your life? And then we had a great phone conversation that lasted a while. And so, from a publisher's point of view, it's the getting to know you dance. And so you wouldn't send a publishing agreement to somebody until you felt confident. And we've also had, I mean, even though JK mentioned that they haven't had to cancel projects, MACD has, where in all the previous discussions, everything seemed just on the up and up, everybody's very excited. And then when it went into production, all of a sudden the author decided it was my way or the highway. And I had to suggest, and this happened more than once, perhaps you'd be better off working with somebody else and let me release you from the agreement. And I didn't see it coming, and it was disappointing, I think, for both parties. But, you know, such is the nature of things. But, you know, this is kind of how it's done remotely. And I would very much encourage people to send their work out broadly. You can find wonderful listings at the Poets and Writers magazine website, CLMP, Council of Literary Magazines and Presses in New York, also a wonderful directory of small presses all over the country. Small Press Distribution, look at their website, see who they're distributing. Consortium Book Sales and Distribution, which is MACD's distributor, wonderful independent presses. So do your research and send out your work, and good luck.
Thank you. Need it.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have something they want to add to that? Okay, Daniel does.
I can add something after Daniel.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, going back to again, like I think, yeah, the communication, of course, to any relationship is the key. And then, so the goals, like discussing these goals. We've had a couple projects not fall through, just like as we went along, it started off, the excitement was there and the reality kind of hit. It's like, hey, maybe this isn't a fit. And fortunately, we were able to maintain a personal relationship, like we're fine before it got too far, but part of it was we kept reevaluating the goals. And one thing about us, and we're very open about what our not say our challenges, what's the word I'm thinking of? I just completely lost it, but what we're capable and not capable of. And then we can just tell, because there's things that I've tried and they just didn't work. And so what we in terms of like, our compensation structure or distribution or just for things of that nature. And so we tell people very upfront what we can do. Because we've had people from other countries and other parts of the within the U.S. approach us, and we just don't overpromise anymore. Because I think early on I was like, yeah, we'll do it, and I have all, I've been humbled amongst certain things. And so going back to that collaborative piece where we've had some partnerships that have worked out well is because we kept communicating, like, this is what I can and cannot do. This is, if we can do this and you can commit to this, this can work. But I can't fly out to Detroit several times. I've flown to Detroit and done some things and supported folks, or LA or wherever else, but that's not sustainable, right? Like, no, we're not making enough money to do that. And so that's where that's worked out well. And I keep mentioning, like, we work with folks in like Ethiopia and Taiwan. Something that's like almost like, not, I'd say the over promising, but it was a lot more difficult than we thought it was going to be. And so that's very grassroots, where it's literally someone's flying to Ethiopia and I just load them up with books and they give them to the author. And the pricing structure in Ethiopia is so different. Like, what it costs more for what the books sell for in Ethiopia is way less than it costs to manufacture the books. So we just know that's we had to learn. But it's fine. I mean, it works itself out. Same thing with Taiwan. Just the shipping costs are so high. But I have enough friends who kind of go back and forth. I was like, here, you take these 20 books, and then literally they get into the country and they ship it for like $2, like the whole box. So we've gotten creative, and again, I think this goes back to that collaborative piece and the authors being open to that. So that's just speaking for ourselves. So we've had successful collaborations, but I think the key word is collaboration.
And afterwards, we should probably wrap up.
Yes, definitely. Always a collaboration. And so J.K. Fowler has something else to say.
Yeah, as the Bay has pushed some of our folks out, we've had folks from Philly, Denver, Detroit. One thing that we've done that's been kind of helpful in building bridges across these long distances is to help out organizations that kind of working in the communities there that are doing similar work, kind of mission aligned to work as nomadic, and having them host events with the author that's now moved out there. In the case of Philly, we had an opportunity to pull a few of our authors together that have had to move out to the East Coast to get together for that. So that's just another opportunity, is to think through the existing infrastructures in these other places that might be able to support the work of building community.
Okay, yes, that's a great answer. And also as well, focus on building community and being a good literary citizen, working well with your publisher, taking advice, listening. I mean, if it's essential to the soul of your book, you don't have to. It's got to be a good fit on both ends, but do be open to paying attention to advice from professionals and just be a good citizen and a good human, and think of it as a process of collaborating and sharing your book and your words with others. So, yeah, any other questions that are coming in through the...
Are there any questions on the... Are there any questions that...
Well, you guys, there's a little bit of a time delay. So I'm actually in the middle of answering a question about the connection right now. So just 1 minute. Or if you want to post
I'll go make some announcements while we're
Yeah,
waiting.
okay.
Okay, so now our club president, Kristen Cavan, is going to step up and make announcements. And so thank you, everybody. Again, double elbow bumps.
You can just turn the camera around to me. I can notes from here. Here I am again. So thank you all for watching today. So what's going to happen after, if we get one more question from you guys out there in internet land, we can do one more round of questions, and then we're going to take a little break, and then we'll come back because Terry has got our presentation for this afternoon, which is awesome, on submitting to journals, literary journals. So I just wanted to do a little housekeeping and finances. As we don't want to use any paper money because it's filthy stuff, but I'm going to post a link to our PayPal links for members and non-members. If you guys want to pitch in, we've still had all the expense of a meeting, and hopefully those who aren't here live on the watch party will be able to come in and see this afterwards. So that was my little announcement. But I did want to really thank you guys all for coming here today. It's pretty special. Okay, any other questions, Karma?
I mean, I just posted the questions, so
there's quite a time
delay. Yeah. So I'm going back to the page where
another thing we can do is, since it's 2:40, we've gone a little late. We can, if you guys want to post questions, all of our panelists, we can tag them all in the link, and they can all answer online too.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, why don't you wrap it up then? Because I don't think there's anything.
Oh, people posted hearts and thumbs up. So
Hearts and thumbs up! Yay!
Yay!
So that's probably where they're at. We know they just got to the clapping if they're at
That's the sound of applause. We love it.
All right, thank you very much for coming out. Once again, this is the panel from the Small Press panel for the California Writers Club. I'm Christina Deptula, your moderator, literary publicist with Authors Large and Small, editor of Synchronized Chaos International Magazine, and speaker chair with the California Writers Club. And our panelists are J.K. Fowler with Nomadic Press, who is here, and Jennifer Joseph of Manic D Press, and Daniel Zarezua of Pochino Press. And turning around to Karma, Kristen Cavan, and Terry Tierney. Terry will be speaking next.
And should we get a closing goodbye from all of our panelists? You guys want to say anything else to wrap up, or are we done?
I'd just like to thank the California Writers Club, Berkeley, Oakland division for having us today, and for really going to extraordinary means to host this in a way that we could do under extraordinary circumstances. So thank you so much.
Really glad we did it. Thank you guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you very much, and we hope this was helpful for everyone. Have a good day.